Angela Hernandez woke to the sound of the ocean and the crushed metal around her. The Jeep was broken open at the bottom of a California cliff, tilted near the edge of the water, with waves moving close enough to remind her that the crash was not finished trying to kill her. Above her, Highway 1 curved along the Big Sur coast, but from where she lay, the road was a world away. Her body hurt in places she could not understand yet. Her head was injured, her chest and shoulders burned with pain. Glass, twisted metal, rocks, and surf surrounded her. She had gone off the road, fallen hundreds of feet, and landed where passing drivers could not see her. For a while, she did not even know how much time had passed. Angela was 23 years old and living in Portland, Oregon, when she began the long drive south in July of 2018. She was headed to her sister's home in Lancaster, California. It was supposed to be a road trip down the coast, the kind of drive people remember for its cliffs, ocean views, and winding turns. On July 6th, she was seen near Carmel, along Highway 1. She spoke with family during the trip and said she was about 6 hours from her destination. Then she vanished. Her family knew something was wrong quickly. Angela was not the kind of person who simply disappeared without contact. Calls did not reach her. Messages did not bring her back. Her loved ones began searching for answers while law enforcement tried to trace the last pieces of her route. There was a clue from a cell tower near Davenport, and there was surveillance of her Jeep along the coast. But Highway 1 stretched through remote country where a vehicle could leave the road and disappear into terrain too steep to search easily from above. Angela later remembered what had happened in one sudden moment. She was driving along the cliffside road when a small animal appeared in front of her. She swerved. The Jeep left the pavement. After that, there was no road, no control, and no way to stop. The vehicle plunged down the cliff near Big Sur, dropping about 200 feet before it crashed onto the rocky beach below. The impact mangled the Jeep Patriot and left part of it near the Pacific. Angela was trapped in a place where the ocean, the rocks, and the cliff cut her off from help. She survived the crash, but survival did not mean she could escape. When she became aware enough to move, pain answered every effort. She had a brain bleed, broken ribs, broken collarbones, a collapsed lung, and severe bruising and burns from exposure. Blood vessels in her eyes had ruptured. Her body had absorbed the violence of the fall, and still she had to think clearly enough to stay alive. The first problem was getting out of the Jeep. The second was water. The Pacific was in front of her, but salt water would only make thirst worse. Above her was the road, but the cliff face stood between her and anyone who might be looking. She could yell, but the ocean swallowed sound. Cars passed overhead. She could hear or see signs of life above her, but no one saw her. From the road, the cliff hid everything. Angela searched the wreckage. She found a radiator hose from the Jeep and used it in the one way that could keep her alive. A trickle of fresh water was seeping from the cliff. It was not a stream she could stand under. It was just enough water running from rock, enough to gather if she worked carefully and waited. She used the hose to drink from that small flow. It became the difference between dying of thirst and lasting another day. Food was almost nothing. There were supplies in the Jeep, but the crash and the water had taken most of what she might have used. She was hurt too badly to climb to the road. She could not simply walk out. The beach below the cliff was rugged and isolated, with no easy path and no guarantee that anyone would come down. Her world shrank to the wrecked vehicle, the rocks, the sound of waves, and the thin line of fresh water on the cliff. The days became a test of staying conscious, staying calm, and staying alive. She tried to make herself visible. She moved when she could. She watched the road above. She yelled for help until her voice was worn down. She knew her family would be looking, but knowing that did not change the cliff. It did not change the distance between her and the people driving above. Each day brought sun, thirst, pain, and the danger that the ocean might reach the wreckage, or that her injuries might finally overwhelm her. At night, the coast became colder and more frightening. The same cliff that hid her from rescuers also trapped her beside the sea. She had no hospital bed, no clean bandages, no safe shelter. She had a ruined Jeep, her own damaged body, and the will to keep waking up. She drank from the cliff. She waited. She called out when she had the strength. Meanwhile, the search continued. Angela's disappearance spread through news reports and social media. Her family pleaded for information. Searchers worked along a route that offered too many possibilities. On a coastal highway filled with curves, pullouts, ravines, and cliffs, the absence of evidence was terrifying. A missing vehicle could be hidden by trees, rocks, distance, or the ocean itself. A week passed. On July 13th, Chad and Chelsea Moore were exploring along the Big Sur coast. They were not part of an official search team. They were a couple from Morro Bay who had been camping nearby and had gone down toward a remote stretch of beach. The area was not easy to reach. They used ropes to get down. As they moved along the shore, they saw something that did not belong. First, they noticed part of a vehicle. Then they saw the wreck. Angela's white Jeep Patriot was at the bottom of the cliff, damaged and partly in the water. The Moors moved closer, stunned by what they had found. Then they heard a voice. Angela was alive. She had been at the bottom of that cliff for 7 days. Help was called. Rescuers came to the scene and found Angela alert enough to speak, but badly injured and trapped in terrain that made removal dangerous. The rescue was not as simple as walking her out. The cliff that had hidden her for a week still had to be overcome. Emergency crews worked in fading light to reach her and bring her up from the rocks. Photos from the rescue showed the scale of the place that had held her. The steep face above, the broken Jeep below. The ocean pressed close beside it. Angela was taken to a hospital. She had survived injuries that could have killed her at the moment of impact, then endured a week of exposure, dehydration, and isolation. Her survival depended on a series of narrow chances. She had survived the fall. She had escaped the wreck. The fresh water had been close enough to reach. The Moors had chosen that beach. They had noticed the Jeep. They had heard her. In the hospital, Angela understood how close she had come to being lost forever. She described the crash, the pain, and the water she found coming from the cliff. She also described the shock of being alive after a week in a place where no one was supposed to last that long. Her family, who had spent days fearing the worst, finally had an answer that no one could have counted on. The story became known as a miracle rescue, but the truth was made of smaller, harder things. Angela had to keep herself alive hour by hour. She had to stay near water. She had to fight confusion and pain. She had to believe that someone might find her even as cars moved far above and never stopped. The cliff did not give her a clear path out. The ocean did not give her safety. Every day demanded the same decision: drink, breathe, wait, and do not give up. Angela Hernandez survived the fall that should have killed her, then survived the week that followed it. At the bottom of a Big Sur cliff, with her Jeep crushed beside the Pacific and her body broken by the crash, she found a thread of water in the rock and held on until strangers came close enough to hear her voice. Thank you for listening to Horrifying Survival Stories. Subscribe for more stories of those who faced the impossible and lived.